Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the Authority, the Finance Authority of Maine.
Welcome. This is our Afterthoughts segment where we keep our guests around from our broadcast program for a little extended conversation, some more hopefully candid discussion about the issues. Today we're talking about the business of nonprofits in Maine, and with us are Scott Schnapp, Executive Director of Maine Association of Nonprofits, Megan Williams, Executive Director of Hearty Girls, Healthy Women, Noah Nesin, Medical Director for the Health Access Network in Lincoln, and Ari Solotoff, Executive Director of the Portland Symphony Orchestra in Portland. And once again, to remind folks that Megan and Noah and Ari are the award, and the organizations are the award winners this year of the Governor's Award, right, from the Maine Association of Nonprofits. So great. We were during the break before we came into the Afterthoughts piece. We were talking about funding sources and just kind of that mix, and it really is. Scott, start that off. You were talking about how kind of it's when you look at just the numbers on an aggregate, it's not an accurate picture because there's so many different types of nonprofits and where their fundings come
exactly. From. And because over 50% of the sector is human service related, and often the amount or the percentage of resources that are coming from the public side are much higher than the 61%, or actually up in the 80s and 90s often. That skews that 61% number in a very significant way. So when you look at organizations like Megan's or Ari's or Noah's, may have, I'm not sure exactly what your funding mix is, you find a real variety of what actually makes up the revenue model for the organization.
Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to follow that. I wanted to ask that question too. We talked earlier a little bit about the checkbook psychology of, it's I don't know if it's counterintuitive or intuitive. I can't figure it out. But when some of those other funding resources go down because they're tied to the economy, and state funding and other funding perhaps goes down, then private donations should go up to fill that void. Does that happen, or are people more willing to give when it's good times and they see, I don't know, how does that work out there?
There are a couple different things that are at play there. I mean, one of the things is what's core to what we're doing, and we can't assume that what's core in terms of our expenses and our impact, that what we put on stage should be the same as it was the year before. We have to be willing to re-examine that question every year. So. It is not a year-over-year process of just carrying the expenses forward, but it's also about looking at it, re-examining it consistently every year, and then coming back and saying, now let's make sure that we don't plan for every single thing that we do to go right, because it never will.
And I loved looking at what you did too. Yeah, I like that kind of the realistic versus kind of guessing what's going to happen, hoping for what's going to happen.
Hoping.
But you also, when you went back, you looked at your programs that you provide, the events, and said, which ones are making money? And even some sacred cows you had to look at, the certain programs that had become kind of traditional.
In our case, it was summer programming that we had to say, well, what is this? What's the ultimate public benefit here, which is what a nonprofit organization is all about? Are we able to meet that public benefit and do it in a fiscally sustainable way? And in the case of our summer programming, we said, right now, we can't do that.
What have you learned, and what kind of things were you able to cut back or change in your organization over the last couple of years because of the financial issues that you learned that it's probably even better living without them? Have you made changes that surprised you maybe?
The changes that we made weren't so much cutbacks because of the nature of the way that we're reimbursed, but was a real hard look with each of our providers as an individual and with all of them as a group at how their days went and how critical it was that they work efficiently and that we provide them with the systems and support they need to work as efficiently as possible. So the doctors are doing the things only doctors can do, and other people are gathering information and doing the things that clerical workers could do, or medical assistants can do, or nurses can do, in order to maximize both the efficiencies of a day in seeing patients, so that we generate the income that we need, and to provide meaningful access for care to care for the people in the community. And those two things led to some stability in a financially challenging time.
Like with a lot of businesses, I mean, you're running a business, sometimes there's opportunities there too. When the heat gets on, you can say, good, this is time to find efficiencies and cut out waste. That's easier to, those are tough decisions, but they're easier to make in a stressful situation.
You mentioned the word heat. We use that word a lot in our change process because it's in stress, and stress creates heat. Heat creates the possibility for things to change, and we took advantage of that. And so I think your analogy is great.
Good, good. I want to ask you about the checkbook thing and private donors. What's been your experience with that? Does the economy hurt that? Does it help that?
The research that I've read has shown that donors are making decisions about their giving and around giving to fewer organizations, but giving more substantial amounts of money. So you, as as an organization, have to really make your case for
competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Make your case for why your programs, are the most impactful, why they're so important to our communities, and what sort of long-term change you're hoping to make.
Scott, talk about that competition thing out there among nonprofits. I mean, come on, we're all going after the same checkbook, right?
Well, I think, I mean, just to echo what Megan just said, that's what we're hearing from our stakeholders is, I mean, donors, individual donations have stayed incredibly stable on an overall kind of basis. What's happening is people are giving to less organizations. We were contacted by, as the economy was, kind of, heading south, wanting the gloom and doom story, from the press, and we really haven't heard that to a great degree. I think the stressors are actually, as Ari points out, are forcing more engagement, forcing more creative thinking, and leading to wherever they lead. They may lead to new business models or re-engagement. They may lead to collaborations, mergers. They may lead to. I mean, I don't think there's any one thing that that the stressors point to, but what they do stimulate is a really honest and candid conversation about the future, and where you go becomes an individualized kind of situation.
I do think when donors are making those decisions that the organization that makes a compelling case for their mission, and in some ways an emotional case for their mission, whether the service they provide tugs at your heartstrings or not, or at your bowstrings, or
your woodwinds, or your brass.
That it's compelling and it moves people in some way. I'm involved with a much larger nonprofit that's across North America with about a $20 million, actually a $35 million budget, and it's important to the people who donated to it. But when the economy took a downturn, they suffered significantly in the donations they received because, although it was important to them, other people obviously made a more compelling case to them that this was where they wanted to send their money.
I want to finish off this kind of afterthought segment. I wanted to ask about, just get your input on that whole kind of issue of nonprofits competing with for-profits. Is that a problem, and how do your members deal with that, and how have you encountered that in your life out there in the nonprofit world?
It's so easy to think of everything.
You get all those tax-free things.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
But I think it's easy to think about everything as a fixed pie. I think that's our default place to go. But when we start to look outside our organizations, whether it be to the for-profit world or to the public sector or to school systems or to any of the other groups or organizations in our community, we find there are actually opportunities to grow the pie. And I think you can change the conversation from one of a competition to saying, well, where do your interests align with our interests? And what can we do to work together to increase and expand our total footprint? So in our case, we're looking at questions like music education in the Portland Public Schools. That's a vitally important question to us, and we should be paying attention to that and thinking about ways to work with the school system and work with the for-profit entities in the community to say, what's valuable here, and how can we work together?
Okay.
There's no question in healthcare you get this all of the time from physicians in the private sector say you have an unfair advantage. We get enhanced reimbursement, cost-based reimbursement from Medicare and Medicaid.
You're killing me here.
Yeah, and we get a grant every year. Of course, we give more than that amount back in free care.
You're losing every year too.
Right, we lose it plus, and we along with that comes all of the requirements that come with federal money, with grant money, with cost-based reimbursement. And we're there to serve everybody, regardless of their ability to pay. And so there are pluses and minuses to it. I think in the private sector, in many ways, as you said, some of the same rules apply. If you're nimble, if you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community and in your particular field, and if you're paying close attention to those things and the needs of the people to whom you're providing services, then it's a more even playing field. Yeah.
I'm going to have to wrap it there. Thank you so much for being here again. This was great. We need to do another nonprofit show and really keep this discussion going and to keep that message out there, I think, how important this is to the overall business environment. And congratulations to the winners again. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all.